Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Liz and today is going to be about the time I was hospitalized into a psych ward. So this video, I have been prolonging making this video because it's a little bit traumatic. It's a little bit of re-traumatization going on. I have wrote a script. It's like 4 pages long, so it's gonna be a long video. So basically, for those of you who don't know, I have bipolar disorder type 1. I was diagnosed when I was about 12 or 13 years old, which was my first hospitalization. And my second hospitalization, I was 19 years old, and it was related to a drug-induced psychosis because I was smoking Mary Jane while I was on antipsychotics. So it stopped working, my antipsychotics, and then it intensified my normal manic episodes, which made it into a psychotic, again, drug-induced psychotic episode. So it just wasn't a good time. Either scenarios. Obviously, I'm not trying to make light of it, but like your girl, I laughed through the pain. Yeah, let's just say that. When I was 12, 13 years old, I had, like I said, my first episode. I'm not going to go into it in this video as far as my symptoms too much, because that's honestly another video for another time. And again, it affects other people. I don't want to talk about this in this video because it's just going to be way too long. So I'm definitely going to split it up at a later date. I have no idea when I'm going to talk about what happens when I actually go through a manic episode, but just for today's sake, it's just going to be about my psych ward experience. So I was about 12, 13 years old when I had my first episode, and basically how I found out I was going to a psych ward, I was sitting in the kitchen with my foster family, and they were talking about the vacation because we were supposed to like leave to Jamaica a few days later. And then my mom took the opportunity in front of like the whole family to be like, oh yeah, I'm not taking you. I'm scared you're gonna run off somewhere, which I did run away at one point in time during my episode because I kind of just had it and I just felt trapped in my own home and I just left.
Hi, Editing Liz here. I just wanted to have a couple little side notes in regards to why I use the quotation marks referencing to when I state that I ran away, and it's because several things. At that point in time, I had my phone taken away from me, my iPod, everything that I could possibly have used to communicate with anybody, friends, other family members was taken away from me. On top of that, I was grounded, so I couldn't leave the house or anything like that. And when I was in the middle of all that was going on with me, I had it, I felt trapped, and I ran away. And as far as running away, I ran to my best friend's house. That was like a 45-minute walk, but I made it there in 20 minutes. And I just vented. I just told her everything that was going on with me at that point in time. And shout out to Genesis, thank you, because your girl just let me vent. But anyways, I literally just went to my friend's house for a couple hours, and when I was done, I was like, okay, I'll come back home. That's why I put quotation marks. I was gone for maybe a few hours, like two to 3 hours, and I came right back home, which is why I use the quotation marks.
So again, I understand where that thought process came through. Maybe the execution wasn't the best way to tell your child that they're going to be in a psych ward while everybody else is on vacation. Not salty about that, but just scenario. So I was pissed and I just ran upstairs, slammed the door, calmed myself down for like 5 minutes, and came back downstairs. Obviously to everybody else it's like, oh, she's crazy, whatever. But I was like, no, I kind of get over things pretty quickly. Like when I'm angry, I kind of get over things pretty quickly, whether it's my bipolar disorder or what have you. I just you know, next few minutes I'm fine, just leave me alone, and I'll calm myself down. And anyways, so I think the day or two before they had to go on vacation, they like hospitalized me, and I went willingly. Obviously I knew there was a problem. I'm pretty sure I had bipolar disorder because my mom has it. Side note, it is hereditary, it is genetic. So my mom kind of gave us a little bit of her crazy, like all one of us, because I have like 5 other siblings, and we all got a little bit of her craziness. But either way, I'm sorry if that offends you, if somebody like calls you crazy or what have you. Obviously, if you have a mental disorder, you're not crazy, you have a mental illness. That's just a terminology I use. I personally don't get like offended by it when I call myself, like I have like little moments. I'm just gonna call it psych ward. A lot of other people say mental facility. I'm just gonna say psych ward. Either way. So my first experience, again, I was like either 12 or 13. I didn't know what to pack. I didn't know what I could bring with me. Like I didn't know how long I was going to be there. Like I knew my family was on vacation for maybe a week, so I packed for a week, but honestly, there's no way of knowing of how long you're going to be there. It's all dependent upon the doctors and when they check you out and when your like availability to come home. Like obviously my family was on vacation, but say they weren't on vacation and they were just ready to pick me up whenever I was ready to be discharged. So I packed for a week, and again, I was still in, like, just because I was like hospitalized doesn't mean any of my symptoms went away. I was still dealing with my manic episode, and I was manic obviously, and I was like, I don't want people to go through my stuff without me being there, and I was pretty adamant about that, and I didn't know what they were like, you know. And they completely ignored me. They moved me to like off site because apparently I was being so problematic. But for the time being, while they inspected my stuff, they decided what I was able to keep. Obviously, I brought a nightlight. Like I brought like a plug-in, and they took that obviously. Like, so as far as like what to bring and what not to bring, they'll take anything that has drawstrings, obviously like a sweater or sweatpants, anything that you can harm yourself or others with. So I will abbreviate things. As far as mental facilities go, SI is an abbreviation for suicidal ideation, and HI is an abbreviation for homicidal ideation. In both instances, I had neither, so there was a lot of things that I was allowed to keep. As far as like, I was able to keep my piercings in. Obviously not when I was 12 or 13. I was 19 and I had a lot of piercings, and since I didn't come in for SI related causes, they allowed me to keep all of my piercings in. However, if you were hospitalized for that related injury or attempt, they would take all of your piercings out, because obviously you can harm yourself, you can rip them out, you can do a lot of things to try to harm yourself. It was a boys and girls facility. Obviously a lot of the time with mental facilities, there's not going to be a huge population to where there's going to be two separate facilities. So even in the adult facility, it's completely mixed. They try to keep them separately obviously, but a lot of the times it's not going to happen. There's not going to be designated facilities for boys or girls or men or women. So in the facility that I was placed in, obviously the children, there's child psych wards versus adult psych wards. I'm not going to mix them. Sometimes they're on the above floor, sometimes they're below. Either way, they're separated. But when I was 12 or 13, the boys were separated on the opposite side of the hall, and the girls were obviously on the opposite side of the wall. Both experiences, you're most likely going to have a roommate. You're not going to have a single, as far as my experience, you're not going to have a single dorm. Both experiences, I had a roommate. So at my first hospitalization, I was obviously diagnosed with bipolar disorder. It was the closest diagnosis, and my mom also was diagnosed with that. So going in, I knew that was my diagnosis, and everybody kind of ignored me, and I was like, no, something's wrong. I know something's wrong. This is not normal. And everybody's like, no, you're fine, until shit hit the fan, and I was buck wild, okay? And they decided my medication based off what worked well with my mom in the past and what she's currently using. I'm not going to say the medication that I'm taking. I don't care, but I don't want people to be like, oh, I think I might have that, and try to like medicate themselves. So I was there for about a week, and there was a point in time when they're like, okay, you're ready to be discharged, you know, you're gonna leave tomorrow or whatever. They do that a lot. I don't know why they did that. It was extremely frustrating. Like, why lie? One of the friends that I made there told me that one of the staff had said in front of a group of people, like other patients, not even just like other staff members, they were in a group of other staff and other patients, and like making fun of me, like, oh, maybe in her imaginary mind she's leaving tomorrow. And I was pissed. Like, first of all, like, you're supposed to be professional. You're supposed to be helping all the patients, whether you liked me or not. Like, obviously I was in the middle of a manic episode. I'm not gonna be on my best behavior, and to try to mock someone for having a mental illness while trying to get treated for said mental illness, like, you should not have been working there. And the facility I went to had a lot of issues with their staff. There was a lot of cases that came out about the staff that previously worked at that facility. I'm not going to go into detail about it, but just so you get some context. A couple points in time I was in the facility, I was allowed to call my foster mom, and I was just like, obviously I've been separated from my entire family, just dropped to a group of strangers I've never met, and doctors and people just like all wanting to know like your full history just to properly treat you. I'll get back to that. But it was just like, I've never been separated from my family like that. Obviously I was put in foster care when I was 12 and 13 to have to go through that again. Obviously it's temporary, but it's kind of the same sentiment, like being separated from everybody that you know. You can't keep your cell phone, like honestly, my mom took my cell phone with me, but you're not able to keep your cell phone with you. In both instances, you're not allowed to like connect to any internet. I'm seeing now on TikTok there's some patients that are allowed to keep their cell phone and record and like post to TikTok, which is, it's just bizarre to me. But basically the both sentiments is like, you're supposed to be separated from any type of outside influence to help treat you better or what have you. So again, couple points in time I was allowed to speak to my foster mom, and they purposely cut off the call in the middle of my conversation to see how I would react. Obviously you're gonna be fucking pissed. Like, I'm sorry, this is like pissing me off. You're gonna be pissed. So yeah, I was just pissed and I just stormed off. Like, I understand, I understand the sentiment of like seeing how they're gonna react once it's close to time for them getting to be discharged, but like just messing with people mentally like that's just not, I don't know, I think that's just messed up, because they do this and I'm not stupid, I've seen them do this to other patients that were there to watch them and their reaction, and the staff watching the patients to see how they react. Like, what type of emotion are you gonna get besides anger? Like, you're cut off from your family, and the one time out of like 3 days or the whole time that you're there, you're only allowed to speak to your family member at one time, and they cut off the call in the middle of it. Obviously, oh, and side note, all the phone calls are recorded. Any of the staff could pick up the phone and listen to whatever conversation is being had. Okay, another thing that I want to know, anything that is said between one staff member is shared between the entire staff team. Obviously it is a group effort. All the social workers, nurses, doctors, whatever, they're all trying to work together to properly treat you. But I think some things don't need to be said between the entire staff. You know, whatever trauma that brought you there. In my opinion, that's not gonna cultivate the best treatment for said patient if you know what they've been through as a child or what kind of trauma they've had in explicit detail. Some things could just be generalized, like such and such was SA'd, if they were physically abused or whatever. Like, it doesn't need to be shared by, in my opinion, it doesn't need to be shared by the entire staff. And that's one thing that I notice as far as like my treatment, just in general, like even outside of a psych ward, like say if you have a psychologist and a therapist, things that are said to the therapist are also shared with the psychiatrist. When I was in foster care, which is why I never spoke up about a lot of the mistreatment that I had while I was in foster care. I never spoke about it because I knew the second I would say something, I would get separated from my siblings, even as young as 12 and 13 years old. Obviously, if you feel comfortable sharing about any past trauma that contribute to your mental illness at the point of time, obviously if it's relevant, yes, bring it up. Like, this has affected me, this is why it brought me here. I'm not against sharing what you've been through, but I just want to notate that, like, in case, you know, you only open up to this specific staff member and you're not aware that they share with this entire staff team. They do. And again, I get the reasoning to help better treat you, but I don't know, I feel like it's invading of your privacy. Obviously you have no privacy pretty much when you enter a psych ward. The doors don't lock, or sometimes they can lock from the inside and outside, so if you try to lock it, somebody from the outside can get in. The doors to the bathroom, sometimes they're slanted, sometimes they're half a door. Everything could be a hazard. If a patient's coming in for SI or HI, they're gonna have to protect the patient themselves and the staff and the other patients in the facility. So I understand. I'm just speaking about both experience, not separating them distinctly from each other, because they kind of have the general themes, right? Same thing when it happened when I was 19 and I was hospitalized in an adult psych ward. They inspect all your stuff. What was different though, in versus to being in a children's psych ward versus an adult psych ward, was the inspection of my body. It was weird. Okay, basically they stripped me down to like my bra and panty, and they notated any tattoos, piercings that I had. I had all the tattoos and piercings that I had now, pretty much. There's a video that I've made of all my tattoos and piercings. So I pretty much had all the same tattoos and piercings that I had when I was 19 until now. The staff inspected any tattoos, piercing, bruises that I didn't have any bruises, but that's what they're inspecting for. Tattoos, piercings, bruises, really any evidence of self-harm. So I understand why that's done, but it's just, again, you basically have no privacy going into a psych ward. So as far as my experience from incomparable to when I was like 12 to 13 years old to 19, it was like night and day. I would say the facility that I was at when I was 12 and 13 was well funded, and there was actually like an outdoor space that we were allowed to go, and we had to walk down to like the dining area, and it was a nice facility. The facility that I was hospitalized at when I was 19, it was very low budget. It was even the water was nasty. Like the water they gave us to take our medications was brown and dirty, and it was like, it looked like dirt at the bottom when you drink it. It was just underfunded. And basically the facility I was at when I was 19, I was at that hospital for about a month. I was ready to go in a week, but since I was 19 years old and the diagnosis they were throwing out was schizophrenic, I was still in the foster system and nobody wanted to take me, pretty much. Everybody that heard my diagnosis, which was not my diagnosis, it was actually bipolar disorder. I was never diagnosed with schizophrenia, but they were throwing that out as a possibility. I was having a psychotic episode, which is fair, but like, why? I understand why the people that were supposed to take me in got that diagnosis, or a snapshot of like, hey, what's wrong with her? She's coming from a psych ward. Why is she there? Why should we take her? Pretty much. Any person or group or facility that was called up to potentially take me was like, what's wrong with her? And the snapshot was 19-year-old female with schizophrenic disorder coming from a psych ward. And I had, at one point in time, I had a conversation with my social worker, and he was like, well, did you see your chart? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, excuse me? Like, I'm sorry, like, this just pisses me off. But it's like, everybody's judging me based off a diagnosis that is not correct. Either way, there's just so much stigma. So I was ready to be discharged in a week, and it took an entire month for me to get placed. And at one point in time, I had to speak to a facility, basically like a group home, that was considering to take me in, and they wanted to have a conversation with me, and basically I had to convince her to take me. Like, isn't this your job? Like, I'm a child in the foster care system. Isn't this your job to take care of kids? Like, I just... For those of you who don't know, children age out of the foster care system at 18 years old, but you can decide to keep yourself in the foster care system until you're 21, which is what I did because they were paying a portion of my college tuition. So as far as visitors goes, I was allowed to have visitors at a point in time. When I was 19, the psych ward I was in, they had a lot of groups, and basically they were mandated. Like, they woke us up at like 8 o'clock in the morning to do vitals every morning, and if you didn't do it, then it was again, like, basically they would use it against you to keep you there as saying you're not compliant for whatever regulations they're asking you to do. Vitals at 8 o'clock, they take your blood pressure, what have you, and then you have breakfast, and then you have these basically mandatory groups of like how you should react, how you should properly react when you're angry, how to communicate your feelings, or art, or things like that. So basically all the patients sit in a circle, like, talk about the topic for that group. Like, it could be substance abuse, it could be anything related to your like mental health or mental illnesses, to reasons why you're there. Oh, there was like some saying where it's like, you think you're crazy until you go into a psych ward, and then you actually meet like people who are crazy, which is like, again, rude. Like, people are suffering with mental illness for something that they can't change. It's because there was one patient there that was schizophrenic, and he was talking to himself and screaming like daily. Like, obviously Your girl was annoyed. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There is an extent where it's like you have empathy for another person, but they're screaming at 8 o'clock in the fucking morning and you're sick of this shit. You're sick of this shit. I'm sorry. Excuse my language, but it was insane. I swear to, I was so, and I had to be there for like a month. Like, I understand this person's like suffering with a mental illness, but like, you're making me insane. You're making me even more insane just being here. So there was another patient that was there that was just like cursing out all the staff members, calling them all types of N-words, and she was convinced that she was a spy for somebody. It's just, and every day. So like, say a patient's out of control or they're about to get the shot, they're to sedate them pretty much. So basically, it's because they did the same thing in the child psych ward. They called it booty juice. Not my words. That's what the other patients called it. But they're like, you don't want to get the booty juice. I'm sorry. This is not funny, but this is kind of funny. The other patients were like, you don't want to get the shot with the booty juice. I don't think I ever witnessed one of the child patients getting the shot, but they almost gave me the shot one day. Because so basically, if a patient, in both scenarios, if a patient's out of control, they shut down the facility, all the patients have to go to their rooms, and I was sitting here playing my Wii, minding my business, and this was like the third time today, they're like, okay, go back to your rooms. I said, I'm playing my game, this is like the one time I had to myself, and I was over it. And they're like, okay, you have to go, patient's out of control or code whatever. Patient, I think one of the patients ran away at one point in time when I was there at the child psych. And they're like, at one point, they came to me, was like, you have to go to your room. I said, I'm not going to my room. I'm playing my game. Like, I'm not bothering nobody. I'm playing the game. I didn't do anything. They're like, you need to go to your room. I said, I'm not going. And they're like, well, and I think I just threw the remote, and they're like, well, we're going to give you the shot. It's like, fuck this. All right, I'll go to my room. I'm not getting the shot. I did not want to get the shot. Basically, they hold them down. If the patient's fighting, they hold the patient down and stick, I don't know what it was. It was some kind of tranquilizer. Basically, they give you an injection in your butt, and then it knocks you out, and then they put you in the what is it called? They put you in isolation, but it's basically that bubble room. But basically, they'll give you the shot to sedate you, throw you in the room for 24 hours by yourself in that little bubble room, which is the same thing that they did in the adult ward. The second time, they just needed to increase my medication.
Hey, it's Editing Liz here. Just want to make a quick tidbit in regards to my smoking use or drug use prior to going back to school. So during the summer, I was smoking either every day or every other day prior to going back to school. And when I went back to school, there was a friend that I used to smoke with who would link me up, obviously, and I was no longer friends with this person, so therefore I was no longer smoking. However, the effects of my psychotic episode continued even well after I stopped smoking. Also, it could cause permanent damage as far as your mental state. So you could have this psychotic episode for the rest of your life for some people. So just a warning.
If a patient, as far as my second facility that I went to when I was 19, each patient was put on a status level, like 1, 2, 3, 3 being the best, you have the most privileges, what have you. So basically, the privilege was you got to go outside. And I think I went outside one time that whole month that I was there. Again, we were on the basement floor, and every door had a key to get into, as far as like leading to outside, and we had to go in a group and just walk out. I understand the security risk having to take out a group of psych ward patients out, outside. They could run away or whatever the case is. But being outside one time, like the entire month, like fresh air, okay? People need fresh air, like, okay. So at the point of hospitalization, I was, again, like I said, I was ready to be discharged in a week. And then I spoke to my social worker, and I was like, okay, like, and I literally had to like plan my entire life as far as like I was homeless in a psych ward, and I had to plan what was I gonna do, like how, like nobody wanted to take me. So I was like, what am I gonna do? Like, basically had to plan out all my options at the ripe old age of 19 until about a month later, where I actually got placed, which somebody I would consider is like the best mother I ever had. Like, we're still in communications. Like, I was placed at her house from 19 until like, I was ready to move out at 24, and like, this is like the best parent I've ever had, or best mother I've ever had. I love my papi, like my father. I love my father, so that's my distinguishing mother. If you refuse to take your medication, they will contact a doctor and again use it against you. When I first got there, they increased my medication without like having a conversation with me as to the reason why they're going to increase my medication. I just got hospitalized and they're like, okay, we're going to increase your dosage about 100 milligrams. And I said, I'm not taking that. Like, why are you like, there was no communication as to why that was a choice. I think there was a group meeting, I think once a week, where it's just the doctor, the nurses, maybe a staff member that is managing your care while you're in the psych ward, and they talk about discharge and if you're ready for discharge and the planning wise. And that's where you like spoke with the doctor. So another thing, within both psych wards, basically there's 2 times where there's medication run. So basically all the patients line up at like what in the morning. If you have morning medications, they just scream morning meds, night meds, and the patients line up to take their medications, whether it's morning or night or morning and night. That is something that frequently happens. If you feel comfortable enough to discuss your own experience, go for it. If you want to privately message me, obviously you can. I posted in my social media after my end of my video all over my YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, what have you, Twitter. Ain't nobody on that Twitter for me. I'm on Twitter, but I don't post anything, but I'm there as well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe because YouTube makes me say this. And if you watch this video all the way through, comment down a little brain emoji, because all mental disorders is from your mind. Clever, aren't I? Bye.